Welcome to Coach's Corner Podcast by Well at Humana, where we talk all things health and fitness with an authentic, informative, and real-world lens. Our goal is to help guide you in your journey to live well. Whether it's your first time here or we're on your favorites list, we want to thank you for tuning in to Season 2.
Welcome, everyone, to this episode of Coach's Corner. This week, we are talking about fitness trackers. Are they helpful or are they hurtful? I'm your host, Dana, and I also have host Amy and Hayley here with me in the studio.
Hello.
Hi, guys.
We're here to bust your apps. Are fitness trackers helpful? But before we begin, we don't have a guest this week, and we typically do like rapid fire questions. So instead, we're just going to have a question of the day to launch into this podcast. It has nothing to do with what we're talking about today, but I want you to think about, as a kid in your neighborhood and the ice cream truck, you hear that music is coming down your road. What are you getting from the ice cream man? What's your go-to?
Side note, I'm putting the ice cream man sound in this when I edit it, but mine had to have been the SpongeBob with the bubblegum eyeballs. Y'all know what I'm talking about?
I know what you're talking about. I never got that, though.
I do, because I have I used to just love the bubblegum. So
What
anything with the
flavor?
bubblegum.
What flavor is SpongeBob, though?
Is it banana?
I don't know.
Oh,
He was
my
pineapple
God.
or fruity or something. Now I'm going to have to look it up. We need a fact checker in
know.
this room.
I wasn't allowed to get anything from that ice cream man because we were poor. But but my favorite childhood popsicle related item was probably that strawberries and cream bar with the little crispies around it, or the orange cream.
Those are still fire.
I'd still tear up.
I think it's
one of those.
strawberry shortcake or something like that.
Yes, strawberry shortcake bar.
They're
Yes,
fire.
that.
For me, I loved an assortment, so there's no one favorite, but I'm going to say right now, a push pop is where it's at. Like the orange push pops, I just feel like you can't go bad, but I love all of the ice cream truck ice cream. So thank you for indulging me in that today.
Loved that. We're going to have to keep that around.
Now I want a strawberries and cream.
I know, right? It's like 11 a.m. You're over there eating a strawberries and cream.
Bring it on. I'll have to log it in my app.
Oh, yeah. So good segue, Amy. As we talk about fitness trackers today, are they helpful or are they hurtful? I think you're going to get a little bit of both sides here, but let's talk about a little bit on what are some fitness trackers that are either popular or that you all have used. Amy,
I think there's there's fitness trackers, when we talk the wearable things, like an Apple Watch, a Garmin, what is it, Oura Ring or something? Fitbit is probably a super common one. So I consider those fitness trackers, but then there's also apps that you can track things in. So you'd be tracking calories, macros, your runs, you can even, and a lot of apps are integrated, so you could upload the data from your wearable tracker into these apps. So lots of different options when it comes to apps and trackers and all that stuff, and I think it's personal preference. I think we're going to end up talking about some of them and some of the benefits and some of the different data that you can gather from each of the different ones. But I think some common wearables that I mentioned. So we got the Apple Watch. That's the one that I use. I have literally used an Apple Watch since they came out. I'm obsessed, so I'm going to be a little biased in this. Garmin, Whoop, Fitbit. And then as far as some popular apps, we've got MyFitnessPal, which I know is a big one for nutrition
Huge
tracking. Lose It, that's the one that I'll typically use if I go in and want to track a day of food. There's 8, which Hayley is going to talk about. That's a pretty cool one. And then there's running apps. We got Strava. That's probably a big one for runners and cyclists.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that's very integrated with wearables and stuff like that. And then we got some goal trackers like Strides and stuff like that if you want to track broader goals other than just your activities and your food type things. If you have other goals like how many books you read or pages or whatever, any other life goals.
I think we've seen tech become huge in the fitness industry, especially over the last couple years, for sure. I think it always had a place, especially when your big tech companies like Apple came into play, Garmin came into play. When we specifically are talking trackers, Fitbit has always been in the game, but you're seeing like really big tech come into the fitness world. Nike has made its way into the fitness world with different workouts and things like that. So I think it's definitely here to stay. It's something that I would say it can be a benefit for you. It can also be a detriment to you if you don't monitor it or you don't recognize some things. So with saying that, like, and we'll talk about each of those apps a little bit further and each of those trackers a little bit further, but what are some myths around like fitness apps and trackers that you all have heard or you do yourself?
So this is one that we have listed that I said, and I can't be the only one here that thinks this, and I know it's a myth. I know it's not a thing, but I get so mad if I forget to start my watch before a workout. Like, if I do a walk or a run or a strength workout and I forgot to start my watch, like, I feel like that workout literally doesn't even count. Like, I feel like my body is not even going to get the results from that workout. Like, I'm so deeply integrated with my Apple Watch that, like, if I don't see those numbers and I don't see it tracked, then I feel like it doesn't happen. And
you're definitely
I know that's a myth.
Yeah, you're not
like,
the only one, though. I don't know if I was just, like, hyper aware of it because we just talked about this topic, but at my gym yesterday, someone said that they weren't wearing their Apple Watch. They can't do that today because it wouldn't count if they didn't have it on. So,
oh, man.
You're definitely not the only one.
Yeah.
I'm like the exact opposite. So, like, I wore a Fitbit for years because I was coaching, but I used it only to see my steps. Like, I'd be training 5 days a week, and I'd never track my workouts, like, ever. But I'm also the person at the gas pump that will, like, leave it on, like, 13-12 and have no worries about it.
I will. Like, if I'm going on a walk, I will try to make it an even number.
Yeah, like, for me, I'm like, we're good here.
But, like,
we're good.
Literally, like, if my battery is dead, like, I will wait until it's got enough charge to go for a run. Like, I'm not
Wow.
gonna just go for a run for the heck of it. Like, but I also like to see my rings closed, and I like to see, like, the little badges.
It's
like
a completion thing for you.
Yeah, like, I like all the other aspects of it too.
Mm-hmm. Is it like, are you a person that makes lists of things and, like, checks them off, highlights that, like,
to-do list?
Yeah.
I'm a big to-do list person.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think that kind of goes hand
For
in
sure.
hand. Like, it's like completing that task
Probably.
for the day.
But, like, with Apple Watch specifically, you got your rings every day, and, like, I gotta close my rings, you know?
Yeah, I shout out to Chantal. I told my friend I'd give her a shout out in our podcast, but she said she gets, like, a serotonin dump when she sees the little fireworks go off on her Fitbit.
Like success.
There's something about that, checking it off. And the next myth that I was going to talk about is, like, a one size fits all. So, like, that works for you, Amy, but it's all about moderation and finding out what works with you. Like, MyFitnessPal was not for me. I got too obsessive about that it ruled my life. So 8 was, like, a more mindful app that worked better for me. And I think that's, something that we will talk about throughout the podcast of just, like, finding what works for you, and then anything in excess can always turn to be harmful. It's using it in moderation.
I think that's with anything, right? But I heard this saying on a podcast the other day. It was actually a motivational talk that was like, there are certain times in your life that you won't be balanced, like that you will have to be obsessed with something to get to the next level. And, like, but I think there's certain time periods, right? There's a time to be, maybe it's your career that you may be, like, overly obsessive with, so something else falls short because you're focused on that. If fitness, or if you're eating for a bodybuilding competition, right, that's going to be way different than if you're just trying to track your goals a little bit, right? And so the obsessive part and the balance part, find out where you are at in the spectrum. Is it the timing in your life to balance things? For me, it is. There was a point in my life where I needed to be obsessive over certain things. But it's like Hayley said, things can become obsessive really quickly when you see them over and over. Like, so MyFitnessPal worked really well for me when I learned how to manage it to my needs. And I think people a lot of times will go into, like, a new, and it's not technically a fitness tracker. Like, it's more of a fitness app where you are tracking your macronutrients and your food intake. But it also is like, it's a great tool to learn how to eat if you're in that right headspace. But if you're in a headspace of like, and you know that you're an obsessive person, I've worked with clients that, oh my God, I try to get them actually away from MyFitnessPal because it's like, Lord, it's ruining their mental health. But also they'll start out using MyFitnessPal with no guidance on how to use it. And it's not really what they need. Like, they're eating 65% carbs, very little protein, where apps like that don't know you. So if you can have someone that can help you set your goals appropriately, that'll be pretty helpful. But can you talk about the other app that you mentioned?
Yeah.
What that does?
And I think I've mentioned it on the podcast before, but when I worked with a nutrition coach, she slowly kind of had me, she eventually got me on MyFitnessPal, but we started on 8. So that was just an app where I took a picture of every meal. And it was super simple, but it allowed me to pause and like look at what I was eating first and then kind of log it from there, and then I could just go on about my day. But that was like such a simple task and like didn't wear on me mentally, that I really enjoyed that, because also when you're like just picking a snack out of the pantry, like at the end of the day, you have to stop and pause because you got to take a picture of that.
Do I really want this?
Yeah. So it actually like allows you to like think about what you're doing, and we're going to talk about it later, but self-awareness, like that's really important with these fitness apps. And I was kind of going to go there next, Dana, is how are they helpful? And I think that's one aspect that they can be super helpful, is just allowing you to be more aware of what does a cup of rice look like, or how much am I eating in a day? Like, all of that is important things that you should know to be a healthier person.
It actually like teaches you in real time.
Yeah.
Like, no one teaches you that in school. You can work with a nutritionist. They will teach you that, but you still have to like take in the experiences from, you know, I started using MyFitnessPal, and then I needed to go a bit more granular on like percentages, where I wanted to go like 32% instead of increments of 5, which MyFitnessPal does. So I switched to Macros Plus. I don't use any of that anymore, but I can tell by looking at a banana what is like 110 gram of banana, which will essentially be like 15 grams of carbs. But it's because I did that for so many years that you eventually learn what you need, and you get more accustomed. Like, I do think we're habitual creatures. So whether you're eating like trash every day or you're eating good every day, usually we eat the same like kind of types of food daily because we're habitual creatures and it's easier. So I think that's more recognition from apps kind of helped me learn as I was going. But like, I do think it's personal preference. Like, Amy, would you say your Apple Watch is healthy for you?
I do, yeah. I don't feel, but I never get to the point where like I'm obsessed with it. Like, if I don't close my rings, I'm not getting up at night to like do 20 jumping jacks. Or like, at first I kind of was, because it was like new and cool and exciting, but now like I don't know, I'm kind of over it. But as far as like food tracking apps and stuff go, I do think there's a huge benefit for just the average person that wants to lose weight, needs to lose weight, even maybe they've been told by their doctor, maybe they're just, you know, just want to lose weight for whatever reason, and have never really put any kind of focus into what they eat, or have really no concept of like a serving size or how many calories are in anything. I think it's a great way to just log your food for one day and just like see where you're at. And a lot of them make it so easy. Like the one that I use, Lose It. And when I say use it, I use it maybe once a month. I'll just check in because I just want to see if I'm getting enough protein. Like you can see a macro breakdown there. But like you can literally scan the barcode of your food, and you don't have to log anything.
It's
you literally
so
scan the barcode and it goes in, and then you just like,
and then it stores it. Like if you use it multiple times, like it stores it in there.
If you eat the same breakfast every day, you can just add your whole breakfast the next day. So it makes it very easy, but I think it's also important to see like the serving sizes. So like when you scan that barcode and it pops up and it says, you know, a serving size of, let's say, peanut butter is 1 tablespoon. and you're looking at you just got the whole jar out with your crackers, and you just have no concept that you're eating 2,000 calories of peanut butter a night.
And you're like, it's just peanut butter. It's healthy.
Yeah. So
again,
I think it's a good way to just like check in on that stuff, or like even like alcohol, a glass of wine or whatever, like those kind of calories. But so if you're a person that has never tracked calories, has really no concept of like a serving size, if you're a person that just sits down on the couch with a bag of chips, like I think you'd be surprised when you really dig into the nutrition facts, how many calories in a bag of chips and how small a serving size is.
It's like 11 chips
compared to like how many calories you need in a day. But the other thing, to your point about like meeting with an actual nutritionist or something, those apps, when you're setting your calorie goals for the day, they don't take some things into account. So, and they also don't really monitor or warn you if you're putting in a goal that's unrealistic. So like an app would essentially let you say,
I'm going to take 800 calories.
I want to lose 50 pounds in 2 weeks. And that app's not going to be like, that's not even in any world possible. And it's going to be like, oh, yes, eat 3 calories a day. And you're going to be like, okay. Like, that's not how any of that works. And so, and I think they are better. Like, I think Lose It now does have some kind of, like, cutoff thing where it won't let you go below a certain amount. But as far as, if you meet with someone first and determine, like, your actual calorie needs, actual realistic goals, and stuff like that, I think it's great hand in hand with that. It is a little blurry if you just download the app, have no idea what you're doing, put in some random stuff, and then put in your food. But I think there's still a huge benefit to it and to seeing, like, serving sizes specifically.
Yeah. To your point, Amy, like, think about how helpful that would be when you go to a restaurant and they give you, like, a half plate of rice, But now
And let me tell you, those apps have all kind of restaurant food in there too.
Yeah, so that's just so helpful in like knowing that maybe I won't eat the whole plate of rice, but I'll eat a quarter of it, and just to be informed about what you're putting in your body. The other thing that I was going to mention from what you said is the nutrition coach with the app. Like, you don't have to do that constantly. You can cycle on and off using the app. I've really enjoyed that. Like, there are phases in your life where it's like you said, you're not going to be balanced. The holidays, families around, you're drinking, you're maybe eating more desserts. Then don't use the app then. It's just going to be torture. You're going to see yourself failing constantly. So give yourself grace. Take the app off your phone then, and then maybe do it in the summertime when you have a little bit more flexibility. I think that's just like a super easy way to be realistic with yourself and not set yourself up for failure.
And I like it as like a check-in, like every once in a while. Like I said, like I do not eat enough protein at all. I'm a carb queen. Like I love my carbs. So like I'll check in and I'll like, because I do, well, no, I don't eat the same things every day, but generally, like you were saying, I have foods that I go to, and I just want to make sure that I'm getting enough protein. And if I log a whole day and I'm nowhere near that, then I'm more conscious to get my protein intake. But then I don't log everything moving forward. I'm just like more conscious to eat protein foods, or like more
you start to understand too, like the total amount of protein, and like, oh, somebody will say, you mentioned peanut butter. Everyone's like, oh, peanut butter has protein in it. It has 4 grams per serving. So like, it's not a main protein source. It's a main fat source with additional protein. But it's like, if you need 130 grams of protein, that's hard to get. Like, you have to be really aware of the amount of protein you're getting to get even close to that.
Another thing, too, is it makes you really conscious of your snacks. Like you were saying, even to take a picture, but, like, to log your snacks every day, if you're logging, you're less, if you're a person that keeps, like, a candy bowl on your desk, or, like, you just have a little mini fridge of sodas, and, like, all day you're just popping out sodas or popping candy in your mouth, and you're not noticing that. If those are things that you track, you start to see those sneaky calories coming up, and then you're just more conscious of, oh, I ate 800 calories in Little Butterfinger sitting on my desk today. I am going to try to be more conscious. And it's not necessarily like you got to track and log every day, but it is good to check in and see where you can make improvements and be a little bit more intuitive with how you.
It helps you be self-aware of, like, because a lot of us mindless eat. So it helps on this. One thing that, switching gears a little bit, one thing that I think trackers are really helpful, and I do get a little obsessive with this, but detecting sleep. Like, most of you guys know I'm a big sleep nerd. Like, I love information surrounding sleep. With Exos, our company, I was actually in a 3-month sleep study with them where we wore Fitbits. We could not take them off, but all they were tracking was sleep. And I just found it to be so helpful in every area of sleep. Like, I actually learned a lot because we have different sleep cycles, right? So everyone always talks about how REM sleep is just so important. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, I was in REM sleep. But it actually helped me learn that REM sleep is actually really short. Like, it's usually no longer than 90 minutes a night. It may be for 2 hours, but not typically. And it may be shorter than 90 minutes. And typically you always think REM sleep is good, deep sleep is good. And you're like, oh, I'm a light sleeper. But actually, you're in light sleep for a majority of your sleep cycles. Typically, if you're sleeping 8 hours or 9 hours a night, you're in light sleep for like 4 hours. And there's different things like happening at different times of those sleep cycles. And I know I'm a nerd about it, but it like really helped me see how just different things in your sleep affect you the next day. I feel like it's really enlightening, and I got pretty obsessed with it. Like, I wanted my sleep score to be 88 and above, and that's what it is for Fitbit when you're in the green. It's like 87 and above. And I coached a boot camp class in the morning 1 day a week where I had to get up at 4:30. So I would try to go to bed by 9. So what's that, like 7.5 hours? Typically, it tracks when you actually fall asleep. So typically, it would take me like 30 minutes. So I would get 7 hours or under. And just that day alone would impact my sleep score by like 10% because it's that big of a difference from my normal sleep schedule. So think about, like, if you're out drinking on the weekends or like your bedtimes are all over the place, like how much that is actually impacting your cognitive function, your daily function. That's the biggest thing that I take away from like trackers like Fitbit or Apple Watch is sleep overall.
So I will say something like when someone's picking out a track, like a wearable or a tracker or something like that, think about what you do want to track and what is important to you. Like I charge my watch every night. Apple Watch, like I know Garmin people can go weeks without charging it or whatever.
Same with Fitbit, like you can go
like
a while.
Apple Watch, I mean, I can maybe make it 2 days, but like I charge it every night. That's just like my habit.
Yeah.
So I don't sleep with it on. I don't think it has the best battery for things. So like if sleep is important to you, like, and that's something else to think about with your trackers is to look at what statistics you can get from them. Like some of them go much more deep into like sleep, or like some of them, like Hayley was talking about when we were playing this, like menstrual cycles too, like body temp, like all that stuff. Like, so when you're picking one, think about what kind of data you want to get from it
and
do that research.
Sleep really was interesting to me too, Dana, which drove me to get Whoop, which is a wearable similar to Fitbit. You don't have a monitor, like a screen to look at. It's just truly like a wristband that you wear, and all the data is actually on your phone through an app. And the founder of Whoop was a collegiate athlete. He found himself sleeping or not sleeping, overtraining, and wanted to find a way to optimize that. So thus came Whoop, and I really found out about it through CrossFit. It's pretty prevalent there, but it's now expanding into like golf and other sports. So sleep gives you a recovery metric. 69% I think is the green technically, but that was one of the most valuable metrics for me to know, like, how is my training session going to be today? Am I in the green? Am I in the red? The really cool thing about Whoop for me was actually detecting sickness. I think I got my Whoop right around COVID when it first started. And I can remember the first time that I got COVID, Whoop actually showed me in the red. It also measures something called heart rate variability, which is just the difference between your resting heart rate and your highest heart rate of the day. So if I'm doing a CrossFit workout and it's a very high intense workout, maybe my heart rate's going to 180, 190 if it's really hard. So it's that difference between. But measuring that can tell you, like, maybe it detects your sickness before you even show symptoms. That was my most recent experience when I caught the flu. So I think those are all really
pretty
cool
neat
things. Yeah. But then the other really cool thing is the menstrual cycle tracking. So I did a little bit of research on this. Whoop's definitely not the only app that tracks this. Actually, Garmin does similar things.
Also, if you don't want a wearable, like you were saying, the Flow app, and I've
yeah,
used that too.
Yeah.
Like if you just want to track like that kind of stuff.
For reproductive health, there's tons of other apps out there. But Whoop saw that women were historically underrepresented in sports science, so they did a little study with a British or Dr. Stacey Sims, if you all want to look her up.
She's awesome. She does like 3 podcasts on it, and it's science-y. You're gonna have to tune it in, but like this is a really, really big topic right now, especially in female collegiate sports as well as Olympians, professionals, that strength and conditioning coaches are really taking into consideration what intensities they should be working with their female athletes at, depending on where they're at in their menstrual cycle and actually how long their menstrual cycle is. Is it a 21-day cycle? Is it a 28-day cycle? So you actually have strength coaches in the collegiate world right now that we may have different groups of females training dependent on where they're at in their cycle. So if you're a 21-day cycle, you may be at a higher intensity. I don't know this exact, like where you're at in the phases, but you may be training at a higher or lower intensity as well as volume than someone on a 28-day cycle because it truly impacts that much. And also Dr. Shannon Eckhart has done some work on it as well, but I'll let you talk about how it's detected in Whoop, but it is something that it's awesome for females because I think the article says like women shouldn't train like the boys or something, and we were all pissed, but it was just a headline to get you bought in. We should be training exactly the same, but actually we should be training at different intensities at different times of our cycle because of how much it affects our body.
It's so interesting. I've actually even had that thought, like looking at some of the top women athletes. Like I've wondered, like, do they get a period too? Like
many don't.
It's just weird. They don't talk about that. So Whoop used that study to help women understand how to train using their Whoop data. So here's what they found. The results I put. During the early follicular phase, so your period, estrogen and progesterone are at their lowest level. So this allows you to build muscle and make bigger gains than in any other phases.
So this is actually when you're on your period, right?
Isn't that
when
interesting?
you're actually in your cycle.
Yeah, when you're
I don't want to move off the couch.
Yeah, that's what you think.
But it's a lower intensity, right? The intensity is higher, but the volume's lower.
Yeah.
So meaning like the weight is heavier, but how hard you push yourself, the intensity as far as like exertion, rate of perceived exertion should be lower.
I think so.
Okay.
But it says on the other hand, as your body prepares for menstruation in the late luteal phase, so just before your period when you're probably feeling crampy, your body is less able to take on additional strain, and it may be a good time to take an additional recovery day.
That makes sense because I get really tired.
Yeah.
Like
and
there's like a day like I almost want to sleep like all day, and I'm like, oh, I know it's coming.
They talk about like doing yoga, meditation during that time, like a low aerobic type of workout where it's not so heavily, it doesn't have a lot of volume, and you're not exerting yourself at like 8.
Yeah, so you don't have to take the day off, but just maybe change it in a way. But it does say like whatever exercise you do, you'll see better gains during your period than any other phase.
Interesting.
Yeah, super cool. But everybody is different. You know, they did say that too. You know, you may have low energy or poor recoveries during your period, but you may choose to not work out as hard during that time. But your cycle affects all of your other systems, including your circadian rhythm, so including sleep. This was super interesting too, that in the week before your period, you're more likely to experience lower quality sleep and more time spent awake than the rest of your cycle.
Wow.
Meaning you may want to plan for more time in bed during your premenstrual week to offset this. The more you know.
That's cool.
I should really sleep more.
Yeah.
It like things like that are so advanced now, and I think those are the really cool things about trackers and apps to me, and more so wearables. To really, you're not the doctor, but you get to be like, or you're not the physiologist or something like that, but you get to learn a lot about your own body and see what's happening. I think that's really interesting.
I think on the flip side, though, if this sounds overwhelming to anybody, you can also just look at your steps. Like,
right?
If you literally have never tracked, or you don't care, or like whatever, you can literally just look at your steps. You can look at your daily calories burned. Like you get to choose as deep as you want to go with a lot of these.
For me, I don't wear any wearables anymore. I wear nothing.
And also, like, do you use your data? Like, hey, like we were talking about this. Like, what do you do with that? Do you actually take that into account? Do you recover on your recovery day?
What's it look like when you're in the red?
It's on. You're so right. Like, I've never altered a workout because I'm in the red. I'm just like, oh well, today's gonna be harder than normal.
So and like, does that mess with your psyche in that you see it? So you're like, oh, I'm in the red.
Yeah.
See, I don't.
Amy's like, I'm in the red. I'm not training.
You're right. I'd be like, well, I should take a nap. Like,
yeah.
I should not go to the gym today.
I guess that's how like different personalities and different like ways of thinking works. But I was kind of gonna stick on the flip side and say, like, how can these apps become unhealthy then?
Yeah, and I think that's where I think that's the biggest question to ask. Like, are you using the data, or is it just data for the sake of having data?
Or are you driving yourself crazy with it?
Yes, and I think a lot falls on that side of things, where I think it's going to be different for different people. And again, what phase in life are they in, right? Are they competitively training? Do they just want to track their steps? And for me, like, I love that. That's what I used to do until COVID happened, and I was getting terrible steps every day, so I just stopped wearing it. So I just stopped.
Okay, so that's what I do too. Like, when I'm tracking food, like, if I track my, like, breakfast, I do great. If I track my lunch, I do great. And then I get invited out for, like, swirl margaritas and Texas Roadhouse, and then I don't track the rest of the
You're like, I'm done. I'm done here.
So I fall off. So, like, that's the same thing. Like, you know, are you going to be honest with yourself?
Yeah.
Or are you just going to let it fall off and you're like, oh, I didn't track it, didn't have it, I don't see it, whatever.
I think that's what a lot of wearables are right now. Is like, and I think that's what probably the tech companies are trying to understand from a psychological standpoint is, how do we have the data, but how does the user use it, and will they use it? And you know, I'm like Hayley, like, I see red scores and I'm like, oh, I need to do better. But I do with sleep, but I swear that's like the only one. Like, if I see red going into my workout, like, I'm not changing it. I'm not resting that day. I'm going to train just as I was.
I think it's super important just to, like, this is with anything, but just to understand how you're going to use it and what are your goals before getting it. Because we're talking about it in a gym setting mostly, but cycling, you know, you think about hiking. I did, you know, talk to my friend about the Garmin. Like, the Garmin can do crazy things like tracking the exact route you did in the
I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
That is like crazy data that he is using, you know, on these, they're pretty intense hikes. That maybe we wouldn't use in Kentucky, but it's just understanding how you're going to use it.
And I remember that too, like in collegiate cycling, like a lot of people use Strava, and you can track your rides and your routes, and you can share it, and you can and it makes it a little bit more social and fun if you do a group ride, and you can add people to that, and you can like some Garmin's now, like, you can actually map out a ride ahead of time, and it will give you directions on there. So, like, if you want to try new routes and stuff, and it will literally, like, tell you.
And pace you.
Yeah.
Like, it'll tell you when you're off pace to kind of hurry up. You can, like, virtually challenge people and, like, race alongside them from your watch.
Yeah.
And I think that's pretty cool, like, from a fitness tracker standpoint, like Strava, the Garmin. For endurance athletes, I think it's really helpful from like a pacing, a distance, routes, like all that's really cool. Most of my endurance friends, they all wear Garmin's. Like they don't steer away from that. I would say resistance training is a little bit different. It's a little bit harder to tell like your exact calories burned. I think Amy can speak more on this because she uses her Apple Watch with like active calories, but like how is it determined? Like, is it determined by heart rate?
Yeah.
Like when you're working out, most of yours is probably, well, you run too, but a lot of it's resistance training.
I do use it. I use it for pretty much everything. I'll use it for my like spin classes. I'll use it for walking, running, resistance training. But basically how it gets those calories. So for Apple Watch specifically, and I'm sure most other trackers and stuff, somewhere you enter in some numbers. Like even if you use a treadmill in the gym, you know, you put in your height, weight, whatever. So they do it, Apple specifically, you go into like the health app and you put in your height, your weight, your gender, and your age. And from there, it kind of gets an idea of your basal metabolic rate. So then when you work out, it uses heart rate to detect that, you know, that heart rate variability. And so it'll kind of tell you, it'll detect that heart rate rise. Why can't I think of words? When your heart rate is up, it will detect that. And that's how it will determine your calories. And so, yes, your calories are going to be different. So, for example, when I resistance train with one of my friends, you know, we're different heights, we're different weights, we are both female, and we are generally the same age. But, like, we also have different levels of training. So even though we're doing the same workout, she's going to burn a lot more calories in a workout just because of our height and weight differences. And even like training. So for the same workout, my heart rate stays lower than hers. And so like we might have a difference of 200 calories for doing the same workout. But that's how it takes it into effect. And then Apple also shows you, which I just learned, I always see it, but I never knew what it meant, your active calories and your total calories burned for a workout. So your active calories are the calories that you burn in that isolated workout. So say you did a strength training workout and it was 300 calories. So that'll be your active calories. And then it'll also show you total calories, which might be like 375 or something. So that's your active calories plus your BMR. So what calories you would have burned if you would have just been like sitting during that same amount of time. So it adds it together. I don't know what specifically people do with that data because I don't really use total calories for anything. But
pretty cool to have regardless.
I like seeing numbers of things. And like Apple has stepped it up too. And like when you're doing runs, like you can see what zone you're in and
that's cool.
It'll show your zones, which is cool. But yeah, it just kind of depends on what data you want, what you care about. What you're going to be using it most for. Like, I don't know if there is a better tracker for, like, if you pretty much are only going to do, like, resistance or weight training in the gym versus if you're just a cyclist or just a runner or whatever. That would be some more research that you do on what you care about.
I think that's how we can kind of wrap this up and put a bow on it is, like, if I'm considering purchasing, like, a wearable, how do I identify, like, the right wearable for me or the right app for me if I'm going into this? What would you guys say to close this out?
I'd say figure out what your goals are first of all. You know, if you're, for example, for a food tracking app, so think about your goals. Think about if that's something that you want to focus on, that's nutrition, and then think about how granular do you want to get. Are you a person that's going to care if you have a higher, you know, if you want to see your macronutrient breakdown, you want to make sure you're getting enough protein, or you just want to see calories or whatever, like what features are you going to be using? Also, like, I think something that we had on there, cost, a lot of them are free and like lose it. Like I use the free version and it has everything I need. So take that into account too. You might not even need to pay for anything. So you can download them, you can try them out, see what you like best. Also, if like you hate that and you start getting obsessive, try out something like 8, like Hayley was talking about, where you just take a picture. Like they're not one size fits all. And just because one doesn't work, you don't have to write off every app in the whole world. You can try different things. And again, a lot of them are free. And then as far as a wearable, I would recommend, again, figure out what your goals are. What are you going to be using it for? Like, are you going to be wanting sleep? Because maybe not an Apple Watch, because I charge that every night. You know, do the research. How long does the battery last? What kind of statistics are you going to get? How do you see those statistics? Do you like the wrist monitor? Like, do you like to see stuff on your arm? Like, I love that the Apple Watch shows me my text messages and my emails. And
I hate it.
And some people, some people hate that. Like, and you can turn those notifications off. I love it. But also, like, if you don't want any of that, you don't want that distraction, maybe a Whoop, because then that doesn't even have a face monitor. So think about how you are as a person. You know, if you see yourself going down any slippery slopes, getting obsessive anywhere, kind of take that into consideration. Maybe you do want more data, or maybe you feel like you're going to be overwhelmed by that much data, and take that into consideration and shop around a little bit.
Yeah, you don't have to default to the most popular ones either. Like, I chose Whoop because a lot of people in my community were using it, and I did like the strain and the recovery aspect that it offered. But I think, as Dana said in the beginning, like fitness and technology go hand in hand right now, and it's just going to continue
huge.
to advance. So do your research and search for the right app that fits with your goals. Like Amy said, there's a plethora of options out there.
Yeah, like I mentioned, I don't wear any wearables anymore. For a long time, I wore different versions of Fitbit. For me, it was because I was coaching at the time, so I needed like 4 things. I needed a watch with like a bigger interface and like different versions of a stopwatch. So like a stopwatch, a countdown, and like a bigger face. I'm opposite than Amy. I do not like my text messages or emails or anything like that to be seen because I'd like to disconnect in that way. I also wanted a very accurate sleep tracker with a good battery because I was going to wear it for a long time, and ability to count my steps. Those were like very simple things. So for me, I felt the Fitbit was a better option too because it cost much less. And if I wasn't doing that many things, then I was going to go with the more price-friendly option.
Right, that's the thing. More expensive doesn't necessarily mean better, especially if you don't care about 90% of the stuff it does. So figure out what you want, and then you could even save some money without all those extra features and bells and whistles and stuff.
I think we ended there. Like, you just have to do, I would say the biggest thing is do your research. And if you do want a wearable, then get something that is aligned with your goals and what you're looking for. And if you don't want to wear one at all, you don't. But then there are some really solid apps out there that can help you with like self-awareness in your fitness journey and just overall well-being. So guys, we just busted your apps. Thanks for joining us, guys. We will see you next time. See ya.
Thanks.
Bye, y'all. Thank you.